What's up, everybody? This is Rukia Hadassah, and I am here to impart some words of wisdom and insight with regards to a recent story that has been um, flooding social media as of late, and that is the story of Jay-Z recently signing a deal with the NFL to collaborate, if you will, on the entertainment as well as present himself as some sort of a social injustice liaison. Excuse me, speaking on behalf of the people who are most impacted by it. And so I want to just delve into this real quick. I don't want to hold you too long, if I hold you at all, as I always say. But have a few thoughts to share, and felt like, again, I have a unique perspective, and I really want to kind of get into this and kind of let you make your own decisions from there. Uh, this story is one, like many, that initially my first thought is to ignore because I don't have any dealings on a major level uh, with the world and all of these, different different things unfolding, and I wanted to give myself a little space from this. And as the story has remained in social media and the media, I began to see it take on new shape and form, and just began to grow a whole other set of tentacles that need to be addressed. And some of those involve reportedly that he encouraged Travis Scott to turn down the Super Bowl opportunity. I guess it was for the halftime show. And I don't really know who Travis Scott is, but see the name in the media, and uh, supposedly he was invited to do a performance, and he chose not to over over the I guess the conflict that had been taking place with Colin Kaepernick. So that is one of the tentacles. Another one that I'm hearing is that reportedly Jermaine Dupri was in talks or considering doing a similar deal with the NFL, which he was encouraged, reportedly, allegedly, to turn down by the same person who went and signed the deal. And so there's concern about that. There's obvious uh, issues with the optics of what has taken place, and I'm not sure if the NFL is thinking they did the right thing. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but they seem to have done it in such a high level of secrecy and sort of, back room type thing. And we're just kind of sitting here trying to figure out how is all of this going to work out. And certainly I have a great deal of um, room to speak, simply because I have had a unique relationship with the NFL, which I'll be talking about in a minute. However, to address this story that I didn't want to address, but as I began to see uh, uh, the story take on more and more momentum, I decided to give it a little bit of a look see. And the more I examined the reactions of people on Twitter, and that's the only social media I have. I don't do other social media simply because it's just way too taxing, and watching these kinds of stories on other outlets is absolutely mind boggling. But to the best of my ability, I'm going to share with you how my family and my life has been impacted by the NFL, and why I am very, very happy that my son made a conscientious decision to walk away from it. So, to continue with my point, with regards to some of the reactions that I've seen across social media, they're very disturbing, some of them, because most of the arguments that they're attempting to make have already been debunked, or they have just proven to be ineffective. And so, as these arguments are being made, I find myself becoming more and more frustrated with the overall uh, position that some people are choosing to take. One of those being that uh, one of these arguments is that we need a seat at the table to have an impact. That's one that's just kind of getting under my skin, because those who are saying we need to have a seat at the table, okay, so you should have gotten this message a long time ago. There's no table for us. We are the table. We're the table on which they're actually creating this scenario and creating this reality for us. So, yeah, that's not a valid argument with me for that reason alone. The second thing I've heard is um, the deal paves the way for black ownership in the NFL and quote unquote future undisclosed social injustice initiatives. This is a direct quote from a tweet that I addressed earlier today. And you know, that one got under my skin enough for me to say, I really didn't want to get involved with this discussion, but I couldn't let that pass. Uh, just the idea that we should just be all aboard for black ownership in the NFL, when black ownership in anything has never necessarily led to significant economic improvements in our community or on any level. So, um, black ownership and black wealth, or black um, uh, riches, they don't really impact the people who are most impacted by these social injustices that are taking place more and more frequently. So I just don't understand the correlation there. I just don't. I don't understand what good is black ownership if we're still going to have tent cities and gang violence and poverty in many of the same cities that these players come from, which are the same cities where there are major NFL teams. So, this is not a valid argument to me to suggest that just uh, black ownership in and of itself is supposed to be something that we're striving for. There's no additional benefits to the impoverished communities that these people come from, including the people who are being offered ownership in these teams, such as Jay-Z reportedly has been offered. So I'm not down with that at all. Future undisclosed social justice initiatives, that kind of segues into my third um, irritating response to this Jay-Z situation with the NFL. Because it kind of lines up with this idea that we need to wait and see how it works first. um, that's not going to work for me. The wait and see approach, we're 400 years into this. We're 400 years into this. Okay? We waited, and I don't think we ever did, to see the killers of Emmett Till brought to justice. And we waited for the killer of Medgar Evers to be tried and brought to justice in a fair trial. That almost never took place. I think they finally put him in jail, towards the end of his life. Then we have, we were waiting when Malcolm came along, and we were waiting when they shot Martin. We were waiting when they went upside Rodney King's head like a piñata. We were waiting when they set those wicked men free. We were waiting when Trayvon Martin's murderer got vindicated for shooting an unarmed child who was just trying to get snacks and go home with a reasonable expectation that he wouldn't be approached by some racist vigilante madman who was all too eager to kill his prey out of fear for his life that would have never been jeopardized in the first place had he just minded his own damn business. See, we were waiting when they failed to even indict Michael Brown's killer. We were waiting when we found out Walter Scott's killer fabricated a report to justify killing a man in cold blood as he was running away. We've waited 5 whole years for the NYPD to finally agree that a man who was willing to use an illegal chokehold on a citizen, a private citizen, causing their death, we finally decided he shouldn't be working for us anymore. After 5 years, violating public safety and public trust, that's what we wait for. We have waited for 400 years for them to get this right. And not once have they ever said, you know what, let's make this thing fair and balanced, just like we do on that football field that we're asking these young men to play on for us, to the detriment of their own health and well-being. No one has the benefit of starting closer to their end of the field than the other team. You can't make certain tackles or grab somebody's helmet or you're going to be penalized if the ref is catching it and calling it. The problem is not having a seat at the table. The problem is that when we get mad about being the table, they get mad at us. Our problem is not that we need to wait and see how this goes. Our problem is that we've been waiting and watching our oppressors make way, way, way too many bad calls. And nobody's ever willing to fix it. So I'm going to say this, and as they say in church, I'm going to take my seat. I'm going to let you know why this story uniquely impacts me and why I have a unique response to this is because my son was drafted in the 7th round of the 2018 draft to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was an employee of the NFL. And you know what? That day, I didn't think I could ever be prouder. The day my son got drafted. But I was wrong. I was wrong. I had watched my son play second team for 4 years at the University of Alabama. I watched him just burn up the field nearly every time he took to that turf. And there was this part of me that was so proud of him. But then there was a part of me that was just torn. Because I knew and I understood at that point, I was awake enough to see he's not getting the benefit or the worth that he's due in exchange for what they've asked him to put his body and mind through for the sake of this game. I didn't like it, but I silenced that part of my psyche, if you will, to try and remain supportive of my son, who, incidentally, by the way, I never wanted to play football. Those are, as Dr. Mumby says, stories for other days. And I've got a ton of them. But for the purpose of this conversation, so I can make my point and go on about my business, I finally realized that I was more proud of my son when he said no deal to the NFL and walked away in his rookie year. He walked away. And there's a reason why I say he walked away. Because not every second string defensive tackle, 7th round draft pick gets to walk away. But he did. And I'm prouder. I am more proud to be the mother of my son, who has circumspectly and conscientiously made a decision to walk away from the NFL, versus how I would feel as the mother of Jay-Z. I would not be proud to be his mother. So I know that sounds nuts to so many because we're all out here chasing paper, chasing stacks or racks or whatever they call them. That's not my goal. My goal was to raise a righteous, decent, fair, honest, and upright man. And I did that. And it cost my son a career in the NFL. It cost him that. Because see, the thing is, we're not willing, all too often, we're not willing to count up the cost of what it's going to take for us to maintain certain alliances and for us to maintain certain industries, our presence in those industries. It's just not worth it. Not to my son, it wasn't. And you know, the Father in heaven is the only one who knows that reason deep inside. But the reason I can say that my son walked away from the NFL, even with his with his limited credentials, what people don't realize is that after he publicly announced on social media that he would no longer be playing football, there were still 3 NFL teams who came after my son to give him an opportunity to play on their team. Now, I said 3, not 1, not 2, 3 teams. After he said he was done with football, came to my son with an opportunity. Actually, they went to his agent. And the agent would get in touch with my son, and my son wouldn't return the agent's calls. He was done with football. The agent finally got in touch with me. When the agent got in touch with me, I said I'll reach out to him. Not very enthusiastic about it, but okay, this may still be my son's goal or dream. I'm not gonna act like I didn't get the call. So I would reach out and he would be, I'm done with football. So after these 3 teams reached out, one of them being the Miami Dolphins. The second one, I believe, was the Tennessee Titans, who, if I understand correctly, was actually offering to sign him. Not just fly him out to camp. They were offering to sign my son. He wouldn't return the call. And the latest one, within about a month ago, was the Carolina Panthers. Wanted to fly him out on a Sunday. I'm not sure what the extent of that opportunity was, but these are phone calls that young men who are first string players don't even get. So I'm trying to give you as vivid a picture as I can in helping you understand what my son walked away from. When he was drafted to play for the Steelers, he was cut and did not make the 93-man roster. I believe that's how many they have. He ended up on a practice squad for Detroit and then on to the short-lived career with the AAF, where he was injured in the second game from being high-load and was out for the season with a tear in his knee. My son ended up recovering, and as he was recovering, he was being recruited by NFL teams, not the Canadian League, not some league over in Europe. He was being recruited by the NFL. And one thing I know is if you are in the NFL on any level, I don't care if you're riding a bench, you are of the most elite players on the planet when it comes to this game. And so to receive those 3 separate phone calls and to 3 times deny even the courtesy of a return phone call speaks volumes. He said no deal. And I'm not saying this to say what Jay-Z should or should not do. I'm telling you from the perspective of a woman who has raised 3 children as a single mother, who has struggled tremendously in my life, who has longed for the time when I could just breathe financially. I have been evicted. I have slept in my car and had to wash up in bathrooms, public restrooms. I have slept on people's couches or mattresses on their floors. I'm just being real transparent with you because this is not something people are willing to do anymore. Everybody wants to put on a face and make some money and I'm done with that. I am done with that. Our people have just lost on way too many levels for us to continue playing these games and getting into these roles and wearing these hats and trying to appease a system that is never, ever, ever, ever going to work for us. It's never going to work for us. And some of us just really need to come to terms with that. There's no more dancing around the elephant in the room. We have to deal with this. And that is the reason I'm sharing my story, because the point I'm making is that you got to start somewhere. It might cost you a whole lot. It would have been nice to have my son pull up and say, hey mom, look, I got you a house, or here's some money that can kind of help float you along for a while or something. That would have been wonderful. But not at that cost. Not at the cost to his body, his mental stability, his self-respect. Playing in the NFL is not just a matter of being able to become some millionaire because you're turning yourself into a crash test dummy Sunday after Sunday for what, 14 weeks? I don't know how long the season is. That's not that's not a fair exchange. And my son made that realization after his first and only major injury the entire 8 years of him playing football. That was the only major injury. He never had any surgeries in college. He was like a brick wall. And he just never had any injuries. Praise Yah. And when he finally got that one during his second official game of professional football, he was pretty shaken up about it. Maybe that played a role, maybe it didn't, but you have to go with what you know. And it's time for us to stop making assumptions about what our enemies or oppressors are willing to do to make things right with us. We have to make things right with ourselves. We have to decide within our own conscience, within our own heart, what is acceptable anymore. And that was not acceptable to my son, and he took a position on it. Didn't make a big fanfare over it. He just did it. He walked away. And all of us don't have that level of strength or that level of commitment to stand up and say enough is enough. And with that being said, hopefully I have opened some eyes and people might begin to understand that this is a matter of conscience. This is a moment of conscience for all of us. And we better start looking at that man in the mirror and deciding whether or not our oppressors can continue to make a deal with us. I didn't ask my son to do anything that I didn't do. And I didn't ask him to do this at all. I put some things on his mind, but he ultimately concluded no deal. And until that's something we're all willing to say, we're never going to be free. We're never going to be free. We're never going to experience true freedom. Some of the responses that I'm seeing, and I'm not going to call any names, people know what position they've taken on this situation. But some of those that I'm seeing reminds me of that last scene in Django Unchained with Leonardo DiCaprio being embraced by his house nigga as he's dying. That's what I see. Because America, this is not our home. This is not where we're from. And the time is coming very soon that we are going to be restored, but we have to want to be restored. And until that day, there won't be any freedom. There'll be more tears. There will be more funerals. There will be more death threats. There will be more terroristic acts. There will be more pain. So, for those of you who are willing to allow Lucy to pull away that proverbial football, be my guest. Be my guest. But it's never going to be there for you. It's never going to be there for you. It might be there for other people, but it's never going to be there for you. So as long as you don't feel the need to change, nothing is going to change. You want to keep waiting? You want to keep looking for a seat at the table? You go right ahead. But you're going to come up empty. Time after time. Generation after generation. It's just time for us to wake up. Just wake up. Understand. This is not the land of the free and the home of the brave. This is the land of the slave. And you're it. If you have bought into this system, if you're buying into the lies, if you're buying the shenanigans and the charades of the NFL and all these other institutions that are designed to distract us and keep us wrapped up in nonsense, don't do that. Don't do that anymore. Let's not do that. It's time for us to find our way back to the truth. Find out who we are, who we really are, and walk in it. Because signing deals with the NFL, Jay-Z, that if that's what he wants to do, let him. But he's going to find out real soon that there is no future in deals with these people. There's no future in it. I'm pretty sure they're already starting to regret. This is becoming a public relations nightmare. I'm sure in their feeble minds they probably thought, Jay-Z, well yeah, his wife, she did that that halftime Super Bowl show with the afros. Oh yeah. Jay-Z, he's the one that criticized everybody and stood with Kaepernick. That one, yeah. They'll buy it. No, we won't. No, we won't. Some of us are too woke for that. So, you all have this story. Like I said, there's more, way more to tell, but I gave you the high points just to make a point. And that is, it's time for us to move, stand up, and claim our freedom. Claim it. There's nothing else standing in your way but you. Your freedom comes through Jesus Christ. He's the one that came to set us free. And if you don't accept that, then you don't need freedom. You don't need it. Just keep going with the flow. But this is my message. Come out of her. Come out of her. Come out of their systems. Come out of their industries. Come out of their social constructs. the religious systems, anything that you can break free of at this point, just do it. If you know it's not representing the essence of who you are as a person and as a human being, just don't take it. If the cost is too high, don't buy it. Because you're never going to get your money's worth. That's all I got to say. Y'all take it easy. God be praised.